Welcome, weary traveler. Tonight, you'll drift far from the comforts of your bed into the deep, slow heartbeat of the past, into a time where boots trudged through frost-bitten fields and cannon smoke mingled with morning fog, into a world where glory was promised but rarely tasted, where honor came at the price of warmth, sleep, and the feel of home. The year is 1804. Europe is restless. The echoes of revolution still ring in France, but a new order has risen, one shaped by a man of ambition, precision, and empire. His name is Napoleon Bonaparte, and soon his dreams will pull thousands of men into the rhythm of marching feet, the scrape of tin spoons in iron pots, the distant rumble of thunder that is never from the sky. But tonight, there will be no loud tales of conquest, only the quiet footsteps of history. We'll move gently through muddy encampments and frost-laced forests, trace letters written under candlelight, and warm ourselves by the memory of a fire that never burned bright enough. So close your eyes. Imagine yourself not as the hero nor the villain, but the everyman caught in the tide of empire. Let the rhythm of their lives become the lull of your thoughts. Now, breathe, and let us begin. Chapter 1. The Call to Arms. The village is small. The road is rutted with cart tracks, and in the still dawn, the air carries the damp scent of hay and wood smoke. You are 19. Your hands are rough from labor. You've never left home before, not truly. Not beyond the edge of the forest or the distant bell tower you can see from the hill behind your house. But today, you are going. The conscription letter arrived with the local magistrate. A crumpled, wax-sealed note with your name written in spidery script. You didn't read it aloud when it came. You didn't need to. Everyone in the village knew what that red seal meant. The army. Napoleon's army. You rise before the sun. Your mother presses a wool scarf into your hands, one she's worn for years. Your father offers no words, only a stiff nod and a hand on your shoulder. The wagon that carries you away is half full already. Young men with pale faces, some still chewing their morning bread. No one speaks for the first hour. The road leads toward Lion, toward uniforms, drums, muskets. You've never held a musket before. By noon, you're at the recruitment barracks, a squat building with cracked shutters and the sour tang of sweat and stale tobacco in the air. A clerk asks your name. A sergeant eyes your shoulders, your hands. You are measured, signed, assigned. A bundle of clothing is shoved into your arms. Blue wool coat, white breeches, stockings, cap, and a worn pair of leather shoes. "This is yours now," the quartermaster says. His tone is flat, like he said it too many times already this morning. You change in silence. The coat is too large. The breeches are scratchy. You look like a boy playing soldier. A drill sergeant shouts. The day's first lesson begins. Posture, pace, the feel of standing in line shoulder to shoulder. You are shown how to carry a musket, how to hold the strap, how to avoid burning your hand when firing, how to keep the barrel clean even in the rain. It is heavier than you imagined. The wood is scratched. The metal smells of rust and powder. "Don't worry," one of the other boys mutters beside you. "You won't need to aim. Just follow orders." You nod, though your hands are already aching. That night, you sleep on a thin straw mattress in a barrack room that smells of damp socks and boiled cabbage. Someone snores. Someone else mutters in their sleep. The walls are thin. The windows rattle softly in the breeze. You stare at the ceiling and listen to the sound of boots creaking. The weight of the coat presses on your chest, even folded beside you. Outside, the wind picks up. Inside, you begin to dream. Of fields you've never seen. Of distant gunfire. Of drums. Always the drums. You wake before the others, though you don't know why. There's no bell, no call, no command, just a hush. A pale gray light creeps in through the cracked shutters, brushing the floorboards in a slow, deliberate stretch. You sit up. Your back aches slightly from the straw bedding, and your limbs are stiff from yesterday's marching drill. You swing your feet over the side, the wooden floor cool beneath your heels. A few breaths pass before anyone else stirs, and then the familiar rhythm begins again. Boots pulled on, belts fastened, whispered curses about the cold, and the occasional creak of the bunk frames as weight shifts. Outside, the yard is muddy from last night's drizzle. A pale mist clings low to the ground, curling around boot soles like smoke. The sergeant barks orders from under his hat, voice hoarse with morning rasp. You line up as instructed, musket at your side, unsure whether the chill in your chest is from the air or from the creeping weight of what you've rejoined. Breakfast is thin gruel and a crust of dark bread. It's served from a dented pot by a man who doesn't speak, only ladles and nods. You sit on a stump and eat slowly, steam rising from the bowl, mixing with the breath clouds of the others around you. There is little talk, and what words are spoken are low and functional. Names exchanged, small complaints, reminders not to forget one's cartridge pouch. You begin to learn how to listen differently now. To footsteps, to the changing cadence of orders, to the tone that means attention or dismissal or punishment. Each hour is consumed by instruction. You learn to load your musket, bite the cartridge, pour the powder, tamp the ball, cock the hammer, and fire. You practice it again and again. Your fingers become stained with black powder. Your mouth tastes like ash. Your shoulder bruises from the kick of the stock. And yet, each time the sergeant shakes his head. Too slow, again. The others are no better. Most are farmers, sons of merchants or tailors. One boy can't stop shaking when he lights the powder. Another fumbles his musket and is punished with laps around the yard. You try not to look at anyone for too long. There's a sort of silence between you all, a shared fog of uncertainty no one dares pierce. That evening, you receive your official regiment assignment, 3rd Infantry. You write it down on the back of your conscription paper and fold it carefully into your coat. There's a feeling that you are no longer quite yourself, not in the way you were before. You look in the warped mirror nailed to the barrack wall and see a face half recognizable. Eyes still wide, cheeks still soft, but something has shifted. Perhaps it's the posture, or the exhaustion, or the quiet, lingering awareness that you now belong to something far larger and far less forgiving. That night, a drummer boy hums a tune in his bunk, soft, repetitive, like a lullaby for the broken. It fills the room gently, soothing even in its aimlessness. You close your eyes to it and imagine fields again. Not the ones you marched across in drill, but those behind your home, tall with barley and full of wind. You imagine walking there barefoot, coat undone, musket forgotten, the sun warm on your back. But even in your mind, the drums return. They follow the rhythm of your breath, slow and even. The sound of empire in the distance. You sleep not out of comfort, but necessity. You will rise again tomorrow, and the day after, until the coat fits like skin, until the musket becomes extension, until your name fades into the roll call, until you stop imagining anything else. Chapter 2. The march never ends. You leave the training grounds just after sunrise. The road is packed earth, cracked and uneven, and your boots, new but already stiff, dig into your ankles with every step. The musket slung over your shoulder knocks gently against your back, tapping like a metronome. The pack on your spine is heavier than you expected. Inside it, a spare shirt, a tin plate, a small journal you haven't yet written in, and your rations. Dry, brittle bread, salted pork wrapped in cloth, a flask of sour wine. No one talks. The men beside you are all shapes and heights, but they walk the same, hunched slightly forward, staring at the path ahead. Every so often a sergeant yells from the front, not words of encouragement, just reminders. Keep the pace, don't drift, stay in line. You don't look up much. The horizon never changes. By midday, your feet are wet. There was no rain, just the dew clinging to the grass along the roadside, now soaked through your socks. Blisters bloom. You feel them form with each step, a soft burn that grows sharper. You don't stop. You eat while walking, tearing at your bread with cracked fingers, barely tasting it. Occasionally, the column pauses to rest, but not for long. Men drop to the roadside, backs pressed to their packs, eyes closed in seconds. You do the same, knowing full well it could be 10 minutes or 40. When the drums start again, you rise automatically, joints creaking, vision fogged, like waking from a dream you barely entered. The days blend. Villages pass like brush strokes. Brown, thatched roofs, shuttered windows, quiet faces that appear at doorways and vanish. Sometimes a child waves. Sometimes a farmer offers a jug of water and is hurried away by the officers. You march past chickens, broken fences, abandoned carts. You learn to notice what's missing more than what's present. Few animals, no young men, rarely a smile. One morning, the ground crunches underfoot with frost. You look down and realize your breath now lingers in the air. The coat helps, but not enough. You learn to rub your hands together between paces, to clench your fingers in rhythm with your steps, anything to keep the circulation alive. Your skin begins to crack at the knuckles. The sores on your heel deepen. Still, you keep walking. There is little to mark the passage of time except for the changing landscape. Forests give way to flat, open fields. The soil darkens, then lightens again. You begin to understand the rhythm of movement more than the rhythm of time. The march becomes your clock. You wake, you walk, you sleep. You stop asking where you're headed. When you arrive at camp each evening, you drive stakes into rocky earth, set up the canvas tent with a partner you barely know, and eat the same meal. Boiled barley, meat. If you're lucky, sometimes just a cup of wine to chase away the cold. The fire crackles. Smoke stings your eyes. You sleep with your back to the ground and your musket across your chest. Not because you're told to, but because you've already started to worry someone might take it. You write a letter once. It's short. You don't describe the march. You write about the stars, how they seem sharper out here, how they remind you of stories you were told as a child. You sign your name with a hand that trembles from cold. You have no idea if it will reach your village, but it helps, if only for a moment, to see the ink on the page. Then the whistle blows. Boots thump. The column forms again. You hoist your pack. The road stretches onward, quiet, cold, and endless. You lose track of how many days you've been walking. The calendar in your mind, the one that once kept track of Sundays, of name days, of market weeks, has faded, replaced now by the simpler rhythm of waking and marching, stopping and sleeping. The days blur together into a single stretch of movement. Your world is reduced to the shape of the back of the man in front of you and the steady weight on your shoulders. Your boots, though broken in, never quite dry. Each morning, you slide your feet back into them with a quiet wince, feeling the familiar sting of cracked heels and skin worn raw. The thick wool socks cling damply to your legs, but you no longer wrinkle your nose at the smell. Everyone stinks. That's simply how it is now. The weather turns, but slowly. Rain, once an occasional nuisance, becomes a near-constant companion. It doesn't pour. It drizzles, cold, needling, persistent. It creeps into seams, finds its way beneath collars and cuffs, settles into the lining of your coat. You tighten your scarf. You hunch your shoulders. You breathe clouds into the wind. The sky is the same every day now, gray and closed as though the sun has gone elsewhere. Someone says it's late October, that winter is coming. Someone else just shrugs. Food is harder to come by. The bread is harder too. It arrives in sacks tossed from the supply carts, already crumbling at the edges. You learn to chew slowly and swallow with sips of wine. You eat while walking, while standing, sometimes crouched under a tree when the march is paused. The officers no longer shout as much. Their voices are hoarse. Even they are tired. The horses look worse, ribs showing, coats matted with sweat and mud. They plod alongside you, heads low, breath steaming. One evening, you reach a crossroads where the company rests for the night. You pitch your tent slowly, fingers numb from cold. The ground here is rocky, the wind sharper. A fire is lit in the center of the camp, though it does little to warm more than a few hands at a time. You sit there for a while, staring into the coals. The light flickers across tired faces. One man is sharpening a knife without looking down. Another is trying to repair the sole of his boot with thread and hope. Someone hums a tune that no one recognizes, but no one asks to stop. It doesn't matter where it came from, only that it fills the silence. A letter arrives in the middle of the night, delivered by courier on horseback. Yours is not among them. A few men receive theirs, creased papers with smudged ink, kissed corners, clumsy drawings in the margins. They read in silence. One stares at his page long after finishing, mouthing the words again and again. You roll over and close your eyes, pretending you don't care. You dream, instead, of fields again. This time not your own, but some imagined place with tall grass and a river running clean. In the dream, you are barefoot. There is no musket, no sound but birdsong. The next morning, you march again. The mud is deeper today, thick with last night's rain. It sucks at your boots, tugs at your step. A man behind you stumbles. Another falls and curses. You hear the squelch of soaked fabric as someone tries to wring out their coat while walking. A nearby village passes by. Low wooden buildings, smoke curling from a few chimneys, children watching from behind shutters. A woman stands in the doorway of a cottage holding a loaf of bread, but a soldier grabs it without a word and keeps walking. She says nothing, just closes the door behind her. You wonder what the people here think of the march. Of you. Whether you are the liberators they were promised, or just another wave of strangers passing through, bringing footsteps and silence in equal measure. Later that day, you ford a shallow river. The water reaches your knees. It is icy, and the shock jolts your legs awake. Some men yell. Others grit their teeth. You lift your pack above your head and wade through, musket held high, boots dragging in the current. When you emerge, your legs sting. Your trousers cling to your thighs. You keep walking. There is no time to dry. Just walk until you're warm again. Just walk until the river becomes a memory like everything else. That night, your hands shake as you eat. Not from fear, just from fatigue. You don't feel frightened anymore. The idea of battle, of gunfire and smoke and death feels distant compared to the ache in your shoulders or the gnawing in your gut. The real enemy is the march itself, the way it strips you of thought, of identity, of memory. You are still yourself, but less so each day. You forget your village's scent, the exact shade of the shutters on your home, the sound of your father's laugh. You remember the mud, the silence, the rhythm of steps that never stop. A man named Henri, someone who once told a long story about fishing in Normandy, starts coughing. It's dry at first, but louder each day. No one talks about it. There's nowhere for him to go, no one to help him. He marches anyway, wrapped tighter in his coat, his cheeks pale. You give him the heel of your bread that night. He takes it without thanks, not because he's ungrateful, but because words are too heavy now. You both stare into the fire. You both say nothing. Tomorrow you'll march again. The same boots, the same pack, the same breath steaming into cold air. And maybe one day you'll reach the front. Or maybe the march is all there is. Chapter 3. Mud in Your Musket. Segment. Night has fallen again, but sleep does not come easily. The camp is quiet, save for the occasional grunt of a shifting body, the snap of twigs under boots, and the distant whimper of horses trying to rest. The cold crawls in through the canvas of your tent, biting at your fingertips and settling in your bones. You curl tighter beneath the blanket, coat still buttoned, musket beside you like a stiff, silent companion. Your cheek is pressed to the earth, damp and uneven, still soft from the afternoon's rain. You breathe slowly, eyes closed, but you don't drift. The wind moans low through the trees nearby. It sounds almost like singing, stretched thin. When dawn finally breaks, it does so slowly, unwillingly, as if even the sun is reluctant to rise again over this march. A heavy mist blankets the camp, and your breath mingles with it as you sit up and wipe the dew from your lashes. Your blanket is soaked along the edges. So is your pack. You unwrap your cartridge pouch and find the powder damp. It clumps slightly at your touch. You try to dry it under your shirt, pressing it gently between your chest and your coat. You've been warned about this. Wet powder means no fire, and no fire means death. Drills continue despite the weather. The sergeant's voice is muffled by the fog, his orders floating through the air like half-remembered songs. You line up with the others, shouldering your musket, going through the motions as you were taught. Bite, pour, ram, raise, fire. You go through it slowly, carefully, praying the powder will catch. On the third try, it misfires with a hiss and a weak puff. The sergeant glares at you but says nothing. He moves on. You exhale and try again, and again. The coughing gets worse around camp. It begins in the mornings, dry and distant, then spreads like mist across the lines of tents. You hear it echoing off the canvas, bouncing from man to man like a song none of you chose to sing. Some cover their mouths with scarves. Others press a handkerchief to their lips and turn away. You can see the concern in their eyes, but no one speaks it aloud. Illness is a shadow here, ever present, uninvited, and stronger than most enemies. The surgeon's cart remains full. A boy you'd spoken to only 2 nights ago is now wrapped in his own blanket, unmoving, beside the supply tent. His name escapes you, though you remember the story he told about his mother's goose. You try to write again that evening, crouched on a rock with your knees pulled close to your chest. Your hand is shaking from cold, and the ink runs thin. You scratch out a few words, still marching, rained again, I am alive, and stop. There's nothing else to say. The paper flaps in the wind. You fold it and slip it into the pocket of your coat. You doubt it will be posted. You doubt anyone at home is still waiting. The nights are restless now. Dreams come, but they are strange, muddy and slow, like wading through deep water. You see faces you don't recognize, hear voices you don't remember. You wake with your hands clenched. You sleep with your coat drawn tight around your shoulders. Once, during a particularly cold night, you wake to find frost forming inside your tent. Tiny crystals along the canvas edges, glittering faintly in the moonlight. You run your thumb over them and feel nothing. Your fingers are numb. You wrap them inside your coat and go back to sleep. The road ahead has turned to mire. Wheels sink. Boots vanish beneath the surface with every step. The men begin to stagger more often. Packs are adjusted and readjusted. You watch a man toss his tin plate into the ditch, muttering that he'd rather starve than carry it one more day. No one argues. A small hill ahead forces the column to stop. The wagons can't climb it in the current state. You are ordered to help push. Your boots slide. Your hands grip the frozen wood of the cart and strain. Mud sucks at your ankles. The cold stings your eyes. When the cart finally crests the hill, cheers are faint and few. You collapse to your knees, panting. Someone helps you up. You don't know who. You resume walking without speaking. The mud is now inside your boots, inside your thoughts. Even the musket feels heavier. Each night you clean it carefully, rubbing the barrel with oil, drying the flint, checking the trigger. It's not fear that drives you to this ritual. It's habit, a routine that keeps your hands busy and your mind from drifting. A part of you is convinced the weapon will fail when needed most. Another part wonders if that would be mercy. That evening, lightning flashes in the distance, and the air smells faintly of ash. You stare into the sky and wonder if the enemy feels the same cold, if their boots are also soaked. if their powder clumps like yours. You think about them sometimes, not with hate, not with fear, but with a sort of quiet envy. They haven't been walking for weeks. Maybe they've slept in beds. Maybe they're just as tired. Maybe they're already dead. You eat in silence. You sleep the same. The musket rests by your side. The mud has crusted beneath your fingernails. The cough is in your throat now, just barely, just beginning. And the war hasn't even started yet. The morning is colorless. Gray sky, gray mud, gray breath curling from 100 mouths. You wake with a cough in your chest, low and scratchy like something trying to escape. You sit up slowly, arms stiff, legs heavier than yesterday. The others are already moving, their shapes like shadows in the fog, packing, standing, waiting. A few mutter to themselves. One man stares at nothing in particular, just chewing a piece of bark between his teeth. It's said to help with hunger. You wonder if it really does, or if it simply gives the mouth something to do besides complain. Your powder is wet again. You unwrap the cartridge pouch under your coat, fingers fumbling with the damp linen. Some of the black powder has turned to sludge. You press it between your palms, trying to warm it back to life. Others do the same. A few give up, tossing their spoiled cartridges into the fire with quiet frustration. You save what you can, gently drying each one by the embers, watching as the moisture flees in small curls of smoke. The musket remains beside you, cleaned again last night, oiled with the last drops from your bottle. You hold it like a sleeping pet, something you didn't ask for but are now responsible for, utterly. The sergeant says nothing about the weather, the condition of your weapons, or the health of the company. He simply calls the column forward. The sound of boots begins again, a soft thunder across soaked ground. The road stretches out like a wound, open and healing slowly, if at all. It seems quieter now. Even the crows don't follow as closely. You walk with your eyes half closed, trying to stay warm, trying not to cough too loudly. After a few hours, you hear coughing behind you. It's louder this time, more insistent. Henri. You glance back. His scarf is stained now, pink at the edges. He still walks, but slower, more hunched. No one says anything. You pass a fallen tree and step over it as if it's always been part of the road. A man beside you slips, nearly falls, and swears. Mud clings to his knees. He doesn't wipe it off, just keeps moving. That afternoon, the wind shifts. It carries the scent of horses, dung, and wood smoke. Civilization. You crest a small rise and see a village ahead, or what's left of one. Half the homes are roofless. One has no door. A well stands in the center, surrounded by broken buckets. You are allowed to stop here for water. You wait your turn, cup in hand, watching as the muddy line trickles slowly toward the stone ring. The water is cold, tastes faintly of iron. You drink anyway. The officers billet in what remains of the inn. You sleep in the yard outside. The grass is flattened, slick from rain. You don't bother setting up a tent. Instead, you wrap yourself in the damp blanket, curl into your coat, and try to remember the feeling of being dry. The fire doesn't catch tonight. Too wet. Too windy. You watch the sky instead. Stars begin to poke through the clouds, distant and disinterested. In the early hours, a gun misfires in the distance. You jolt awake. Others do, too. No one screams, no one runs. It was only one shot, probably an accident. Maybe someone trying to clear the powder from their musket. Still, it sets your heart beating faster than it has in days. You breathe slowly, counting the spaces between each breath until it steadies. The cold doesn't help. Neither does the cough. Henri doesn't get up the next morning. He lies still, scarf over his face, chest unmoving. Someone covers him with an extra blanket. The others don't gather. There's no priest, no words. You stand nearby and look at the shape beneath the fabric. You remember the story he told about fishing. You try to remember his face clearly, but it slips away like water between fingers. The march begins again. You move on. Mud has found its way into everything. Inside your boots, your pack, the seams of your coat, even your thoughts. You begin to wonder if it's always been there, if this entire life has been one long trudge through something soft and cold and unrelenting. You dream of dry powder now, of a musket that fires when it should, of a day without coughing. Your letters are fewer now. You write them in your head more than on paper. Still alive. We keep walking. It's colder now. You imagine your mother reading them beside the stove, lips pressed tight. You imagine your sister trying to picture your face. You don't know what she sees. You barely remember it yourself. Somewhere in the distance, someone says the enemy is near. But it doesn't feel real yet. There are no banners, no drums, no cannon, just mist and silence. And the constant fear that when you finally do raise your musket, it will only hiss again, that you'll be standing in mud, wet to the knees, hands shaking, lungs raw, staring across a field at someone you've never met, both of you praying your weapons will fire, and neither of you knowing if they will. Chapter 4. The Cannon's Shadow. The ground is no longer just wet. It's carved, chewed, and battered. You've arrived at a ridge where the company is told to stop, and something about the way the officers move tells you that this is not another temporary halt. There's a silence in the air, but not the comforting kind. It's the kind that precedes something, a breath held too long. You see men gathering logs, building low earthworks, dragging cannon barrels into place with exhausted horses. You ask no questions. No one does. The answer, anyway, is obvious now. You are near the front. Smoke begins to appear on the horizon, not from houses, but from fire pits and artillery drills. You're ordered to dig, not for food, not for warmth, but for defense. Shallow trenches, hastily carved through frozen mud, lines of pickets stabbed into the ground, half-hearted walls of dirt and timber. You shovel until your hands blister again, until you can't feel the difference between your breath and the air. It's hard to tell how far the enemy is. Harder still to tell if they're watching you already. Your musket is cleaned once more. This time, not from routine, but from purpose. You oil the lock twice. You repack your cartridge pouch. You tie the powder horn to your belt and count the rounds again and again. 8, then 9, then 8. You don't remember dropping one, but the numbers shift in your hand like ghosts. The officer walks past, his sword dragging faint lines in the dirt as he paces. His coat is pressed, his boots clean. He nods once. "Be ready," he says, as if you weren't already pretending to be. That night you're assigned a watch rotation. 2 hours of standing silently behind the trench, eyes fixed on the distance, musket across your chest. The moon is thin, the sky a blanket of haze. You think you see shapes moving in the fog, but nothing ever approaches. Just wind. Just shifting trees. Just the sounds of 1,000 men trying not to breathe too loudly. When your shift ends, you lie down and sleep in your coat, but you do not dream. Not really. Only flickers, faces you don't know, flashes of blue and smoke, the sound of footsteps running toward you, then away. By morning, the air is sharper. The sergeant's tone has changed. He speaks in commands now, without explanation. Pack everything, quickly. No talking. Form the line. You march a short distance downhill, then into a clearing where cannon have been lined like teeth. 12, maybe more. Their barrels are already blackened from use. Artillerymen tend to them quietly, stuffing bags of powder, adjusting the elevation with wooden wedges. You stand behind a low wall of mud and wait. And then you hear it. Not near, not loud, but unmistakable. The sound of a distant cannon rolling over the hills like a warning bell made of thunder. A pause follows. Then another, then a third, closer. You feel it in your chest this time, a low thud that echoes through your bones. The officer walks along the trench and stops beside you. "Do not fire until you see the signal," he says. You nod. He walks on. The man beside you has never fired in battle before. You know this because he keeps checking his musket, wiping his palms on his coat, biting the edge of his cartridge paper. You feel no different. You check yours too. You listen as the enemy guns fire again. Closer now, sharper. The sky carries their sound like ice cracking across a frozen lake. You crouch slightly, breathe through your nose, and try not to grip the stock too tightly. When the first ball lands, it doesn't hit your trench. It slams into the ground 50 paces away, sending up a geyser of earth and broken timber. The shockwave is real. You flinch. Everyone does. The second comes closer, just behind the line. A man is thrown backward. You don't look to see who. The third hits the trench wall 20 feet to your left. Mud rains over you. The officer shouts, and you don't hear what he says. Everything becomes motion. Men climbing, shouldering their muskets, eyes wild. Then the drums begin. Your side. A signal. You raise your musket over the trench wall and peer out. Smoke veils the field ahead, thin and curling at the edges, like breath from some unseen beast. The officer raises his sword. Somewhere, someone screams. Maybe out of command. Maybe out of fear. You wait. The world feels suspended. Cold air on your cheeks. The weight of the weapon. The sting of your fingers. And then the signal comes. You fire. The musket bucks hard against your shoulder. Smoke bursts into your face, sharp and acrid. You do not know if you hit anything. You do not care. You drop to your knee, reload quickly, bite, pour, ram, cock. Fire again. You are no longer thinking, just moving, following the steps drilled into you 100 times. You hear others firing, screaming, falling. You smell gunpowder and soil and something else, sweat maybe, or fear. The cannon's shadow hangs over everything. Even as the smoke thickens and orders blur into noise, that deep thunder continues, distant and close, falling in rhythm with your breath. Smoke fills your lungs, not enough to choke, but enough to make every breath feel weighted, like trying to inhale through a wool blanket soaked in vinegar. You've fired 3 times now, or maybe 4. The sounds have melted into one long, indistinct thunder, too loud to measure, too continuous to parse. You ram another cartridge into the barrel, hands moving faster now, not out of confidence, but desperation. Your fingers are black with powder, knuckles stiff, eyes stinging. You don't know where the enemy is exactly. The smoke obscures the field ahead. Shapes shift in the haze. Figures rising, falling, running, then disappearing again. The cannon fire hasn't stopped. You feel it now not only in your ears, but in your bones, your stomach, your knees. Each explosion comes with a shockwave that trembles the very earth beneath your boots. Another blast lands behind you. This time the ground jumps. You flinch and turn, just in time to see a cart collapse inwards, its wooden wheels shattered, the horse that pulled it already down. The officer yells for someone to move the wounded. No one moves. No one hears. Or perhaps no one wants to. You reload again. You've lost count. Your musket is warm now. Too warm, and the barrel smokes even between firings. The man to your left is bleeding from the arm. He presses a cloth to the wound, wraps it twice with shaking hands, then lifts his weapon and continues firing without a word. The cloth darkens. You glance down at your own coat. There are no holes, no blood, yet. The trench walls are lower here. In some places, just mud stacked with boards. You crouch when reloading. You stand when aiming. You don't look around much anymore. There's too much to see. The field beyond the smoke flashes with movement. Bayonets glint for a second, vanish. A volley comes from the other side, a sharp crack like dry wood snapping in rapid fire. Someone shouts, "Down!" but you're already crouched. The bullets hiss overhead, a strange, quick buzz like hornets in flight. You count to 3, then 4, then 5. then rise again to fire. Your hands act without thought now. Each motion mechanical, each decision reduced to muscle memory. There is no thinking, only acting, only staying upright. Time dissolves. The fight stretches and folds into itself. There are no minutes, no hours, only bursts. Reload, aim, fire, duck, breathe. At some point, the cannon stops. Not all at once, but gradually, the way a storm recedes into the hills. The silence that follows is unnatural. Your ears ring. Your chest rises and falls with too much effort. The musket is heavier than ever. You set it down gently, almost like laying down a child for sleep. The silence does not last long. An order comes. You barely catch it. Advance. You clamber over the trench wall. Boots slipping in fresh mud, breath sharp in your throat. The field is soaked and littered. Debris everywhere, broken weapons, torn flags, a half-shredded drum. You try not to look too closely at the bodies. Your eyes skim across them, not pausing, not acknowledging. You step over a shattered crate, sidestep a collapsed man whose uniform you don't recognize. Was he one of yours? His face is turned away. You keep walking. The officer's sword glints ahead. You follow it like a beacon. Others rise with you, dozens of men stumbling forward in a staggered line, muskets lowered or held at awkward angles. The smoke begins to lift. You see further now. Patches of grass, a torn satchel, a fence crushed under the weight of a fallen horse. The enemy is gone, or retreated, or regrouping. You don't know. You don't care. You just keep walking, half expecting another volley, another cannon blast, but none come. You reach the far edge of the field and drop to your knees, not because of orders, just because your legs give way. You sit in the mud, chest heaving, sweat cooling beneath your coat. Around you, others do the same. A man sips from his canteen, his hand trembling so hard he spills half of it down his front. Another pulls off his boots, revealing bloodied socks. You hear crying somewhere. Not loud, not wailing, just a soft sound like wind through reeds. No one comments. Later, you're ordered to dig again. Not for defense this time. You know what for. You take the shovel without protest. The ground here is softer than before, still muddy but loose. You work beside two others, none of you speaking. The sun is low now, casting golden slants through the thinning smoke. Your hands blister again, but you don't stop. You don't look up. You don't ask who goes into the trench when it's done. That night, you don't eat. No one does. The cook fires were never lit. You sit near your pack and clean your musket again, slowly, wiping each part with care. The ritual feels different now. Not preparation, not routine. Something else? Something quieter, like closing a book, like folding a letter you'll never send. When you lie down, you stare at the stars. They are sharper than you remember, brighter, colder. You try to count them, but lose your place quickly. You pull your coat tighter. You feel the weight of the musket by your side, the weight of everything. You cough once, then close your eyes. The cannon is silent now, but its echo remains, etched in the soil, in your chest, in the backs of your eyelids. Even as sleep takes you, you hear it still. Chapter 5. Austerlitz in the Fog. They call it a masterpiece. The generals, the historians, the men with clean hands and polished boots. The Battle of Austerlitz, they'll write one day, was a triumph of strategy, a dazzling display of the emperor's genius. But none of that means much to you now. Not here, not this morning, standing ankle-deep in frozen grass beneath a sky painted in thick, colorless fog. You don't see victory. You don't see glory. You see your own breath hanging before your face, curling like smoke as it vanishes into the white. The fog is everywhere, thick and muffled and absolute. It swallows sound and shape, hides even your comrades from view when they stray more than a few paces. You're told the enemy is nearby, that they've taken the high ground, that they've dug in on the Pratzen Heights. You nod as if it matters, as if the name of a hill makes the climbing of it any easier. Your musket is dry at least. You checked 3 times this morning, pressing your hand to the cartridge pouch, feeling the firmness of each round. You breathe in the cold air. It stings your lungs, sharp and clean. You march in formation again, but not like before. This time it feels different. Each step is measured, deliberate, quiet. The officers whisper more than shout. Orders pass down the line in hushed voices. It's as if the fog demands reverence. Even the horses tread softly, hooves pressing soundless into the mist-covered dirt. You can't see the column ahead. You follow only the back of the man in front of you. His boots, his pack, the occasional flick of his elbow as he adjusts his grip. The world narrows to this rhythm. Then, without warning, the fog begins to lift. It doesn't vanish, not all at once, but it thins, peeling back in long ribbons, revealing shadows and shapes that gradually solidify. Trees, stones, a crest of land ahead, and there, the enemy. You see them now, lines of men in uniforms not unlike your own, standing quietly, waiting. It's a strange moment, this clarity, like waking up from a half-remembered dream and finding yourself somewhere you didn't mean to be. Your fingers tighten on your musket. The command to fire comes suddenly, and the line responds. Flint strikes, powder flashes. Smoke surges forward again to replace the fog. The first volley echoes against the hillside, and you reload quickly, the motion practiced, almost reflexive. Fire, ram, bite, pour. Fire again. The enemy returns fire. Bullets hum past your ear, one striking a tree with a sickening crack. You do not flinch now. There is no time to. As the fog continues to lift, the full battlefield reveals itself. Lines upon lines, moving pieces on a living board. Infantry, artillery, cavalry, all shifting in slow chaos. You don't see Napoleon. He is somewhere behind, no doubt watching from a height, calm and silent, reading the enemy's moves before they make them. That is what they'll say, that he saw through the fog, that he let them believe they were winning, that it was all part of the plan. You don't know if it's true. You only know you are here, boots sliding in frosted grass, body hunched, musket hot and dirty in your hands. The push begins. The officers call for movement, left flank, forward march. You follow the command, stepping over a man slumped in the mud. You don't check if he's alive. There is no time. The charge goes up the hill now and your legs burn with effort. You hold the musket high, using it like a walking stick, planting it in the soft earth to steady your steps. Shots ring out from the ridge. Men fall. One cries out beside you and drops to his knees. Another keeps running, eyes wide, bayonet raised. You reach the crest, breath ragged, and the enemy is there. Close, too close. There's no time for another shot. You fix the bayonet and thrust. It meets resistance. Then nothing. You don't look. You step past. Everything is a blur now. Faces flash and vanish. Uniforms clash in color and movement. Somewhere a bugle sounds. Somewhere a horse screams. The ground is slick beneath your boots. You don't know what it is. You don't want to know. And then it shifts. The enemy begins to fall back. At first, slowly, then faster. The line breaks. You hear someone yell, "They're retreating!" You don't cheer. You don't smile. You just stop walking and lower your musket. Your arms are shaking from exertion or cold, or both. The hill is yours now, but it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like silence. You sit for a moment on a rock near the top, staring at the landscape below. The fog has mostly cleared. You can see the valley, the scattered formations of men regrouping. Smoke rises in gentle spirals from dozens of places. It's oddly beautiful in a distant, cruel way. The sun begins to pierce through at last, casting light across the bloodied grass, the fallen cannon, the discarded packs. A soft wind stirs your coat. This is Austerlitz, they'll say. A perfect battle. But in this moment it is just another hill, just another cold morning. just another ache in your chest and the quiet wonder that somehow you are still alive. You descend the hill with your boots dragging in wet soil, each step quieter than the last. The shouting has faded. The cannon, too. The battle is over, or at least it's moved elsewhere. You feel the strange stillness that comes after such a storm, a quiet so complete it almost hurts. There is no rhythm now, no marching, no volley, no voice cutting through the smoke. Just the creak of your gear, the whistle of distant wind, and the steady thump of your heart, which somehow beats slower than before, as if it has begun to understand that there's no longer anything left to race toward. You pass a row of wounded lying near the base of the ridge. Some are being tended to, others simply resting, eyes closed, arms limp, uniforms darkened with blood or soot or both. You stop beside a man you think you recognize. His hat is missing. There's a rip in his sleeve. His lips are cracked. You want to say something, to ask his name or offer your canteen, but your throat is too dry. Instead, you kneel beside him and place a hand on his shoulder. His eyes flutter open. He says nothing, just blinks at you, slowly, then closes them again. You rise and continue on. A wagon rolls past, its wheels groaning under the weight of the fallen. The driver doesn't look at you. You don't look at the wagon. One of the horses is limping. The other walks without urgency, as though used to this burden. The road is uneven here, pocked with holes from the cannon fire, dotted with shattered equipment, and scattered papers, maps, letters, torn orders, and pages from books you'll never read. You step over them without meaning to. Eventually you find your unit, or what's left of it, gathered around a small fire behind the line. No one talks about the hill. No one talks about the enemy. One man swears he saw Napoleon himself that morning, standing atop a ridge like a statue. Another says he saw nothing but mist. You stare into the flames, rubbing your hands together, though you don't feel cold anymore. Just empty, like something has been used up and not replaced. A courier arrives with news. It's a victory, he says, a great one. The Russians are retreating. The Austrians, too. The line held. The enemy is broken. There's murmured approval. A few smiles. One man raises his tin cup and toasts, "To the Emperor." The rest follow, more out of habit than feeling. You drink, but the wine tastes like ash. Later, someone brings out a harmonica. It's cracked and off-key, but the melody it produces is familiar. A slow, wandering tune that drifts between the flames and settles on your shoulders like snow. You close your eyes and let it carry you. That night, the fog returns. Not the same heavy curtain from the morning, but something thinner, gentler. It moves like memory, soft and slow. You lie on your blanket with your coat draped over you, your musket resting nearby, and your cartridge pouch tucked beneath your head. You stare up at the sky, watching the mist blur the stars into halos. The fire crackles. The harmonica fades. You think of your mother's voice again, this time not calling your name, but humming to herself while washing clothes in the stream behind your house. It's a strange thing to remember now, but you hold on to it. In the early morning, before the sun rises, you wake to the sound of footsteps. Not running, just pacing. An officer moves through camp with a lantern, checking the lines, his boots crunching frost beneath them. You sit up and stretch. Your muscles ache, but not as sharply as before. You feel older, not in your bones, but in your breath. Each inhale feels like it comes from deeper within you, as though your body is learning how to carry the weight of survival. You eat a crust of bread left in your pack. It's hard, but familiar. The kind of taste that ties you to the world again. You clean your musket slowly, carefully, the way you always do, though now it feels more like ritual than need. You polish the barrel until you see your reflection. Faint, warped, but there. You blink at it. It blinks back. At dawn, the sun finally breaks through the mist. Its light spreads across the frost-tipped fields, revealing the traces of the battle now past. Shovels rise and fall in the distance, carving resting places in neat rows. A column begins to form, ready to move again, boots stomping softly in preparation. You sling your pack over your shoulder, shift the musket into position, and take your place among them. The war isn't over. Not yet. But for now, there is pause. And in that pause, there is a kind of peace. As you march forward once more, you glance back one last time at the hill behind you, now glowing gold in the morning light. Austerlitz, they will say. A victory. But you will always remember the fog. The silence. The moment the enemy vanished like mist. And how, for a breathless hour, it was as if none of you existed at all. Chapter 6. The Looting and the Letter Home. The town is quiet when you arrive. Not empty, not abandoned, just hushed. Windows shuttered, doors closed but not locked. A few faces appear from behind curtains, quick glances, nothing more. Children peek around corners, then vanish. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once and is answered by nothing. You march in over broken cobblestones. The click of boots, a steady rhythm that echoes too loudly against the narrow stone walls. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like trespassing. Your officer says you're to rest here, replenish, regroup. There's no fighting today. No marching either. You drop your pack beside a fountain with no water and sit on the edge, shoulders hunched, musket across your knees. Around you, others do the same. A few wander into nearby buildings without asking. No orders forbid it. No one protests. The people here do not speak your language or pretend not to. Either way, silence is easier. You're quartered in a house near the town square. The shutters are broken and the roof leaks near the back. Inside, it smells faintly of candles and wood polish, with a stronger undertone of something burned. A book lies open on the table, words in a script you can't read. You flip through it anyway. The pages feel fragile. Someone must have left in a hurry. There are dishes in the sink, still wet, and a scarf draped over the chair that hasn't been moved. You lie on the floor that night, too tired to set up proper bedding. The floor is uneven, but dry. In the morning, you help yourself to a coat from a house on the edge of town. It's wool, heavier than yours, with buttons of real brass. You find it in a chest beside a cracked mirror and a stack of old letters bound with twine. You take the coat. You leave the letters. One of your comrades finds a bottle of wine and shares it around. You drink, but not for joy, just to warm your belly, just to forget how many homes you've walked through. Later, you're assigned to assist with supplies. You help unload a cart of salvaged goods, crates of flour, barrels of salt pork, a bag of silverware wrapped in cloth. You don't ask where it came from. The officer notes each item in his ledger with a nod. You're told to carry a chest to the storehouse. It's heavy. Inside, you glimpse porcelain dishes and linens embroidered with initials. Someone once cared for these things. You wonder if they are watching now, from behind a door, from a hill, from another country. At dusk, the town is quieter still. Some men play cards on overturned crates. Others wander in pairs, speaking softly. One sharp voice breaks the quiet, a dispute over boots, over who took what. The tension passes quickly, swallowed by the dark. You return to the house and light a candle. It flickers against the walls, casting strange shapes from your pack and coat. You sit beside it, unwrap a sheet of paper, and begin to write. "Mother," you start. Then pause. You stare at the word for a long time as if trying to remember how it sounds when spoken. Then you continue. "I am well. We have taken a town. I cannot tell you its name. The people here are quiet. We will not be staying long." You stop again. You don't mention the coat, or the wine, or the fire you helped set to clear a barn for supplies. You fold those thoughts inward, press them beneath the surface of your mind like a stone in a pocket. You keep writing. The boots are holding up. The food is enough. We sleep indoors tonight. I found a place by a window and the air smells of apples. It's a lie, but a gentle one. You want her to picture something soft, something far from this. You add a few more lines. I still carry your scarf. It keeps me warm. I wear it around my neck in the evenings. Please tell Anna I am well. You sign it simply, with your name. Then you fold it neatly and slip it into an envelope, sealing it with wax you borrowed from the church. You don't know if the letter will reach her, but the act of writing it steadies you, reminds you of who you were before the coat, the march, the mud. Outside, the stars are faint, hidden behind a haze of distant fires. You step into the night for a moment, breathing in the cool air. A church bell rings somewhere far away. Not an alarm, just the time. You listen to it echo through the empty streets, through the shuttered homes, through the places you'll never see again. Then you return indoors, blow out the candle, and lie on the floor. The coat keeps you warm. The musket lies nearby. The letter stays tucked in your pack. Tomorrow you will move again. You wake to sunlight pouring in through the broken shutter slats, the golden streaks soft against the dust floating in the air. For a moment, you don't move. The floor beneath you is warm where your body has rested, your coat wrapped tight around your shoulders like a shield. You blink slowly, not from tiredness, but from the strange gentleness of the moment. It's been so long since the morning has greeted you without cold wind or an officer's bark. Just quiet, just light. Outside, the town remains still. There is no rush, no roll call. The soldiers wander now in smaller groups, some drinking from borrowed cups, others sitting on doorsteps like guests who have overstayed their welcome. You pass a pair of men laughing softly, passing a pipe between them. You can't remember the last time you heard real laughter. Not that loud bark of exhaustion, but something small and honest. It lingers in the air, fragile as the rising smoke. You return to the fountain in the square. It's still dry, but someone has placed flowers in the basin, wild yellow blooms picked from the hills. No one admits to doing it. No one comments, but they remain, a tiny act of something that resists the grimness. A woman stands nearby, watching you. Middle-aged, wrapped in a shawl, eyes unreadable. She doesn't flinch as you pass, nor does she speak. Her gaze follows you until you turn the corner. Your duties today are simple. Guard the storehouse, check the manifest, report any shortages. You stand outside for hours, leaning on your musket, watching the breeze stir the laundry that someone has dared to hang out again. You wonder about the people here, those still hiding in their homes, those who fled, those who stayed behind. Their world has been upended, but in small ways it endures. A broom rests on a stoop. Bread bakes somewhere, faint in the air. A child's toy lies forgotten in the dirt. In the afternoon, a new order arrives. You're to help escort supplies out of the village to a forward position. The cart is small, the mule stubborn. You walk beside it for hours, the road rough, the sun dipping low. Along the way, you pass a chapel barely standing, its roof caved in on one side. You pause, just for a moment. Inside, a row of pews still stands. Light spills through a cracked stained glass window, washing the walls in fractured color. You don't enter. You just stand there, watching it flicker across the stone like ghosts that forgot how to leave. Back at camp, you find a letter waiting. Not from home. There are no stamps, no handwriting, you know. It's from someone in another unit, someone you shared a fire with weeks ago. It reads, "If this reaches you, I hope you're still breathing. We passed a frozen river 2 days ago. Lost 2 men to the ice. I thought of you. You always said winter would come sooner than we expected. You were right. There is no name, just initials." You fold it slowly and tuck it beside your mother's letter, careful not to crease either. Small things matter more now than they ever did. That evening, you return to the house one last time. You're told you'll be leaving at dawn. Orders to move, as always. You gather your things, scarf, coat, musket, letter, but you also pause. You walk once more through the rooms. You touch the cracked window pane, look once more at the scuffed floor. You wonder who swept it. You wonder if they'll return. You don't take anything else, just a piece of cloth you found in a drawer, a small napkin embroidered with the name Elise. You don't know who she is, but somehow it feels wrong to leave it behind. You pack in silence. Outside, the others do the same. A few sing softly under their breath. One man reads aloud from a dog-eared book, his voice low and uneven but soothing. You sit on the stoop and eat a slice of dried apple. It's sour but familiar. The sky above turns a shade of blue you haven't seen in weeks. Clear, quiet, endless. Before sleep, you write one more line to your mother, below your folded letter. We leave again tomorrow. I am still here. Then you add a final mark, a small line. Not a signature, not a flourish, just a line to say, I was here. I saw this. I lived this day. You lie down on the floor again, the same corner of the same room. But now, it feels different. The walls feel closer. Not in a suffocating way, but like they remember you. Like they'll hold your shape for a while after you're gone. You wrap the scarf around your neck and close your eyes. In the distance, the last fire crackles. In the hallway, someone hums a lullaby. In your chest, you carry the stillness of this stolen night and the quiet weight of all the things you didn't say. Chapter 7. The Road to Moscow. The road is wider now, but it feels lonelier than ever. Open stretches of hard, cracked earth unfold in every direction. The villages fewer, the trees barer, the sky broader. Russia does not rush to greet you. It stands still, watching from the horizon, distant and unmoved. The wind here is colder, drier, sharper somehow, as if it were carved from the bones of the land itself. It finds every gap in your coat, snakes through your sleeves, settles in your chest. You wrap your mother's scarf tighter, tucking it under your collar, and keep walking. They say Moscow lies ahead, but no one seems to know how far. The maps change daily, revised by officers with pale faces and frostbitten fingers. One morning, you're told it's 3 days. The next, 5. And still the road continues. Long, gray, unyielding. You see fewer travelers now. No carts, no farmers, no wandering goats or children. The only movement is your column, slow and stretching like a trail of smoke. At night, you rest in empty fields, too vast to shelter you, too hard to dig into. You don't even bother with tents anymore. Just the coat, the blanket, the dirt. Meals are colder, harder. You break your bread against a rock to eat it. The salted meat smells sour, but you chew it anyway. The wine is gone. The water freezes in its flask overnight. You wake each morning with stiff hands, aching knees, and a deep, hollow hunger that sleep cannot cure. And yet, you keep walking. The routine is so deep in you now it feels like breath. You forget how long it's been since you last sat on a chair, since you last heard birdsong, since anyone laughed out loud. The villages you pass now are different. Not burned, not bombed, just abandoned. Doors swinging on their hinges. Laundry frozen on the lines. Firewood stacked by cold hearths. Everything left in place as though the people had only just stepped out for a moment and never came back. You search for food in these homes. A few onions, some grain. Once, a jar of honey so thick and sweet you held it to your tongue for a full minute before swallowing. It made your eyes sting, though not from the taste. One evening, you find a dog. Thin, silent, its ribs pressing tight against its fur. It watches you from a distance, then follows for a while. One of the men tosses it a scrap of bread crust. The dog eats it without a sound, then disappears into the trees. The next night, it returns, and the night after that. You begin to look for it, though you say nothing. It reminds you that something still lives out here, that not everything has fled. Your boots begin to crack. You patch them with strips of cloth torn from the lining of your pack. The soles wear thin. With every step you feel more of the ground beneath you. The frost bites harder now. Your breath forms in thick clouds, lingering in the still air before vanishing. The cough has returned. Yours, others. Sometimes it sounds in unison, like a chorus of weakness. You try not to listen. The officers look different now. Their uniforms are still clean, their swords still polished, but their voices have softened. You see them walking farther back in the line, heads low, eyes scanning the distance like they're searching for something that's not ahead but behind. You hear rumors. The Russians are retreating on purpose, drawing you in, letting winter do the fighting. You don't know if it's true. You don't care anymore. You just want to stop walking. One morning, frost forms on your blanket. You wake to find your hair stiff with ice. The ground beneath you is white, not from snow, but from the frozen breath of 100 men. You stamp your feet, rub your hands, swing your arms to bring blood back to your fingertips. A man near you doesn't wake. He isn't dead, just refuses to open his eyes. He lies there until a sergeant kicks him, gently at first, then harder. He gets up eventually, but slower than before. That day, you pass a small church. The doors are gone, the roof caved in. Inside, the altar still stands, though the cross is missing. Someone lights a candle and places it near the edge. No one speaks. You linger for a moment, eyes tracing the cracks in the stone walls, the faded paint of a saint's robes. Then you move on. There is no more singing, no more whistling, just the sound of boots on frozen dirt and the creak of gear and the quiet gasps of breath drawn sharply from the cold. Sometimes you hum to yourself, not tunes, just patterns, rhythms, anything to pass the time between footsteps. And always, always the same thought. Where is Moscow? You don't say it aloud, you don't ask any more, but it lingers, like the frost, like the dog's eyes in the dark, like the echo of your name in a letter that will never be opened. The frost becomes snow. First, just dustings that vanish by noon, then heavier falls that cling to the trees, the rooftops, your shoulders. You don't notice the exact day it happens. It just is. You wake up one morning and the world is quieter, blanketed, muffled under a thin layer of white. The road ahead stretches like a pale ribbon. Your boots crunch as you walk, each step sinking slightly, leaving behind dark prints that fade quickly beneath the weight of those who follow. The men stop wiping their coats clean. They stop shaking snow from their packs. What's the point? It returns again and again, and colder each time. You pass more villages, but they feel less and less like places. The homes are nothing more than empty shells now. Walls without warmth, roofs sagging under the weight of snow. In one, you find a hearth still warm with embers. No one is there. A kettle hangs over the coals, half full with melted snow. Someone was here. Recently. You take a sip from the kettle. The water tastes of ash and iron, but it's warm, and that's enough. The dog returns again. This time, it walks beside the column longer. It doesn't bark, it doesn't beg. It simply watches, ears pricked, eyes scanning the white horizon like it understands the silence too well. One of the men tries to shoo it away. Another gives it part of his ration. You don't do either. You just walk, and it walks with you. At night, you dig yourself a place to lie in the snow. Not deep, just enough to be lower than the wind. You lie there, coat wrapped around you, blanket frozen stiff across your knees. You close your eyes and try to imagine the feeling of a real bed, the softness of it, the weight of a mattress under your body. But even your imagination feels tired now, and the thought slips away before you can fully hold it. There are no fires tonight. No one wants to be seen. The officers say the enemy could be near. Or maybe not. No one seems sure anymore. But you follow orders. You stay low. You eat in silence. The bread is so hard it must be broken with your musket butt. The meat is frozen solid. You chew slowly, carefully like you're trying not to wake something. The man beside you loses his glove. Just one. He wraps his hand in a rag, but by morning the fingers are purple. He walks with his hand under his arm, breath sharp and ragged. You offer him your extra wrapping cloth, torn from the hem of your shirt. He takes it without words. Nods once. That's enough. You see horses dying now. Not from wounds, just from the cold. They sink slowly into the snow, breath growing shallower, legs trembling, until they stop moving altogether. The drivers don't bother trying to raise them. They unhitch the carts, take what supplies they can carry, and leave the rest behind. You pass one horse still standing, its eyes glassy, ribs heaving. It doesn't move when you walk by, just stares ahead as if it too is watching for Moscow. The landscape flattens. The sky seems wider. Your shadow is longer now, stretching behind you like a second self. Thin, hunched, relentless. The wind picks up. It carries the sting of snow into your eyes, down your neck. You walk anyway. You always do. There is no choice. One day you see smoke on the horizon. Not from a campfire, but thicker, darker. The kind that clings low and spreads wide. Moscow, someone whispers. The word feels foreign in your ears. You've waited so long to hear it, but now it means nothing. Just another name. Just another place. As you grow closer, you see the domes first. Tall, strange, and beautiful even against the gray sky. Gold and green and red, though dulled now by soot and distance. The city is large, much larger than you imagined, but quiet. Too quiet. No drums, no voices. Just the soft fall of snow and the low crackling of distant flame. You don't enter the city yet. You make camp outside its walls, near a frozen river, where trees line the bank like silent sentinels. The officers confer near the fire. You're too far to hear, but their faces are drawn, their eyes uncertain. Someone says the city is abandoned. Others say it's a trap. You watch as one of them points to the sky, toward the smoke, and then to the east. You don't understand what it means. You just watch the way their breath mingles in the air before vanishing. That night, you lie in your blanket and look at the city from afar. Moscow. You made it. You think the thought over and over, trying to make it feel real. But all you feel is cold. You close your eyes and listen to the distant fires burn. The dog curls at the edge of the camp near a tree. You see its ears twitch in the moonlight. You don't sleep well. The snow is thicker now. Your scarf is wet. Your feet ache. But you are here. You are here. Chapter 8. The Burning of the City. You step into Moscow with snow beneath your boots and smoke in the air. It doesn't feel like a city. Not anymore. It feels like the memory of one. Its silence too thick, too complete. The streets stretch wide, empty of voices, carriages, life. Grand buildings rise on either side, their doors flung open, windows shattered, paint peeling from stone. At your feet, fragments of things once useful. A wooden spoon, a child's toy, a shoe missing its pair. The city has been emptied, not slowly but like breath forced from lungs. You walk with the others, slowly, heads turning not in awe, but in search of something you can't quite name. Maybe food, maybe warmth, maybe proof that someone remains. The officers give no orders beyond move forward. You fan out through the streets into homes left untouched but not unmarked. Tables are still set in places. Firewood is stacked neatly in corners. In one apartment, you find a piano with the lid still open and sheet music fluttering beside it. You run your fingers gently across the keys. They make no sound, either broken or frozen. Either way, the silence remains. Someone finds a storehouse filled with flour. Another uncovers salted meat in a basement. These discoveries spark small bursts of excitement, but not joy, just relief, cautious and brief. You fill your pack with what you can. You eat standing in the middle of a kitchen that's not yours. You drink from a teacup you didn't earn. You warm your hands at a fire lit in a stranger's hearth. The dog sits nearby, tail tucked under, eyes half closed. Then, without warning, the fires begin. They don't come from cannon. They don't roar in from beyond the walls. They bloom inside the city, from rooftops, from windows, from shutters kicked open by hands unseen. One by one, buildings catch. You see flames twist upward into the snow-choked sky, orange and angry, devouring rafters and banners and beams. Smoke floods the avenues. The scent is different than battlefield fire. This isn't gunpowder. This is wood, wool, paint, a lifetime of belongings reduced to heat. At first, no one knows what to do. Some believe it's sabotage. That Russian soldiers hidden still have returned to finish what retreat could not. Others say it's arson by design, that the city was meant to burn, to leave nothing behind for the enemy. You don't know who started it. You only know it's spreading. Fast. Too fast. Men rush to save what they can. Buckets are passed, but the water freezes before it can be thrown. Someone shouts for blankets to smother the flames, but there are too many fires, too many places, too much loss, unfolding in every direction. You run with your pack slung across your shoulder, musket banging against your spine. The snow is melting beneath the heat, mixing with ash to form a black sludge that clings to your boots. Embers rain from the rooftops, glowing like stars in freefall. One lands on your coat, hissing. You slap it away before it spreads. You duck into an alley to catch your breath. The wall is warm behind you, pulsing with the heat of the next building ready to collapse. You smell burning fabric, then parchment, then nothing at all. Just the metallic taste of smoke in your throat. Above, the golden domes of a cathedral flicker in the firelight. You stare up at them, watching as shadows dance across the ornate surface. A gust of wind fans the flame along the roof. For a moment, the entire city seems to glow. You feel no awe, only exhaustion, only the soft, familiar ache of knowing that even what was spared will not remain. You move again, dodging debris, stepping over collapsed timbers, pushing past soldiers carrying looted satchels and faces blackened by soot. Some try to douse the flames with snow. Others give up entirely and fall back to the outskirts. You follow them, not because of orders, but because the heat is too much now. You step out from the city center and look back. Moscow burns. Not just a house, not just a street, but the city itself. One great flame, rising into the sky, consuming history, memory, shelter, comfort. You watch in silence. Everyone does. There is nothing to say. There's no music in this fire, no meaning, just loss. That night, you sleep far from the city walls. The flames still glow on the horizon, painting the clouds orange and red. You lie on your back in the snow, staring at that distant light. Your blanket is stiff with ice. Your coat smells of smoke. The dog curls beside your boots, eyes never quite closing. You think of what you took from those houses. A handful of bread, a scarf, a candle stub. You think of what was lost, names you never knew, stories you never heard, music you never played. And you wonder if the city mourns, or if it was already saying goodbye. The fires continue for days, not in one single blaze, but in pockets, sometimes quiet, sometimes sudden, flames that leap from roof to roof, alley to alley, stubborn in their destruction. You grow used to the sight of smoke curling up from the city's heart, drifting into the sky in slow gray spirals. At night it blots out the stars, and during the day it hangs like a second sky, closer, heavier, always moving. You don't return to the city. Few do. The officers say the risk is too high, the structure's unstable, the threat of collapse constant. But really, it's something else, something heavier. No one wants to walk through the ashes of what they once hoped would bring relief. You remain camped on the outskirts. The air here is clearer, but not clean. Everything smells faintly of what's gone. The scent of burned linen, scorched meat, melted wax, smells that cling to your coat, to your blanket, to your breath. The snow around camp has turned gray, dirtied by soot and footfall, trampled into ice in some places, slush in others. It's colder now, not because the weather has changed, but because the fire once offered warmth. That warmth is fading. Food grows scarce again. Whatever stores were salvaged now lie beneath rubble or in the hands of officers. Rations are cut. Bread is harder. Meat disappears. You begin to chew slower, savoring the dry crust as though it were a feast. Some men chew pine bark. Others melt snow in dented tins and drink it with shaking hands. One man finds a jar of jam buried in the lining of his pack, raspberry deep red, and shares it with 5 others. You watch their eyes soften for a moment, and you wonder what memory the taste returned to them. The dog stays close. It no longer scouts or lingers behind. It walks beside you now, stops when you stop, curls at your feet without hesitation. You've started calling it Ember, a quiet name, fitting. You don't know if it understands, but you say it aloud sometimes when the firelight flickers or when your voice feels unused. You feed it scraps from your own mess tin. You find comfort in its presence. Not joy, not affection, but a small kind of steadiness, like a stone that doesn't move even as the river rushes past. The city's silence is louder now. Not the silence of snow or distance, but the silence after something breaks. Buildings still stand, cathedrals, libraries, theaters, but they stand as husks, charred outlines, stone frames holding nothing but ash. You see men staring into doorways, unsure whether to go in or walk away. Some try to rebuild campfires using burnt planks. Others simply walk in circles, as though waiting for someone to give the next order. But no orders come. Letters arrive from the rear, carried by pale riders with hoarfrost clinging to their sleeves. Yours is not among them. You watch others unfold theirs, lips moving slowly as they read. One man smiles, another weeps. You sit quietly and imagine a letter from home. It would say nothing of war. It would ask about your boots, remind you to eat, tell you the fields are still green and the cat sleeps in the sun. You picture the handwriting, looping, soft, uneven on the edges. You picture your mother's hands. You swallow hard and look away. That night, a church burns. Not by accident, someone lit it. Whether in anger or fear or cold, no one says. The flames rise quickly, the steeple glowing against the dark. You watch from your blanket, head resting on your pack. The officers make no move to stop it. The bells ring once as the roof collapses, then fall silent. No one speaks, no one moves. You pull your coat tighter, you close your eyes. When you dream, the city is whole. The buildings are clean, the bells chime gently, and the air smells of bread. You walk the same streets, but now they're filled with voices. Market stalls, children running, musicians playing in the square. You see Ember trotting ahead. You follow. And just as you reach the square, you wake. The snow is back. The fire has died. The cold has returned. By the next morning, the command is clear. Prepare to march again. The city has given all it can. There is nothing left here but stone and silence and smoke. You gather your things slowly. The musket, the scarf, the blanket, still lined with ash. You pack your final slice of bread and check your boots for holes. Ember waits by the edge of camp, eyes fixed east. As you fall into line, you turn once more toward the city. It stands still, blackened, silent, watching. You lift a hand to your brow, not in salute, but in acknowledgement. A burned city remembers, even when the men who burned it must forget. The order comes without ceremony. One morning, you rise with frost on your blanket, stretch your stiff limbs, and a sergeant quietly tells you to prepare to move. No speech, no drum roll, no farewell to the city. Just a nod, a glance toward the eastern road, and the weight of understanding settling on every shoulder at once. Moscow is behind you now. Ahead lies the journey home, or something that might once have resembled home. You sling your pack, cradle your musket, and begin walking once more. But something is different. Something has shifted. The road you once marched down in hopeful formation is now a graveyard of broken wagons and discarded gear. Burned-out carts litter the edges of the snow-covered trail, and the bodies of horses, stiff, limbs frozen mid-motion, line the path like forgotten statues. You pass them silently. You used to count. Not anymore. You stopped when the number no longer mattered. The men around you do not talk. Some cough, some limp, all walk. The snow deepens with each passing day. It piles along the sides of the road, clings to your coat sleeves, turns your breath into mist that curls back into your face. Your boots, already cracked, begin to stiffen at the toes. The laces snap one morning as you try to tie them. You fasten them with strips of cloth torn from the lining of your pack. They hold, barely. The frost creeps in anyway. The retreat has no rhythm. You march for hours, then stop for minutes. Or the other way around. The pace is dictated by the weakest now. Those who stumble most, those whose carts groan loudest, those who fall and cannot rise. You move as a wounded creature, dragging yourself across a landscape that seems determined to remain endless. The horizon no longer changes, just more white, more sky, more wind. The rations thin. You eat every other day, or when you find something left behind, a crust frozen into the corner of a pack, a shriveled potato blackened with frost. You scrape away the rot. You chew slowly. The hunger doesn't fade, but it becomes familiar, like an old injury you've grown used to living with. You no longer expect to feel full. You only expect to survive. One night, a man near you dies in his sleep. You wake to find him curled tightly into his coat, eyes closed, hands tucked beneath his chin. For a moment, you think he's just resting, but then you notice the stillness, the way the breath never rises. No one speaks. You and another man lift him gently, carry him a few paces from the others, and place him beneath a tree. You mark the spot with a broken musket butt. That is all. Then you return to your place in line. The march continues. Ember keeps close to your heels now. He no longer scouts ahead. The snow makes it harder for him, too. You share what little you have. A bite of bread, a sliver of meat when you're lucky. He eats quietly, with soft eyes. His ribs are visible now, but he still walks, even when you can see the shiver in his legs. He doesn't bark, just looks up at you from time to time as if asking, "How much farther?" One evening, you pass a village not marked on any map. It is barely a dozen homes, their roofs caved in, doors blown open. You search them out of habit, not hope. In one you find a cradle, rocking slightly in the wind. It is empty. A single wooden spoon lies beside it. You take the spoon, not because you need it, not because it's useful, but because your hand needed to hold something light. That night, the wind howls harder than ever. Your blanket is useless. You sleep beneath your coat, curled against a slope in the road, ember pressed into your side. You wake often, not from dreams, but from the cold biting at your ears, your toes, the tip of your nose. You press your fingers beneath your arms, against your neck. Anything to keep them warm. You mutter your name under your breath, quietly, again and again. Just to hear it, just to remember that you're still someone. By now, the ranks have thinned. You notice it more clearly in the morning, when the column begins to move and the spaces between men grow wider. Fewer footsteps, fewer faces. No one announces who's gone. They simply disappear, like words erased from a page. You look for familiar eyes, familiar gaits, and find none. You stop expecting to. The officers speak less, too. One collapsed during a snowfall and was left behind. The other now rides a lame horse, staring ahead with hollow cheeks and bleeding lips. His commands are mumbled, barely heard. You follow anyway, not because of orders, but because movement is easier than stopping. because stillness is too close to death. On the 12th day of retreat, you cross a frozen stream. The ice cracks beneath your feet but does not give. You walk lightly, carefully. One man behind you is not so lucky. The sound is sharp, like a rifle shot. You don't turn. You hear the splash, the silence that follows. Then the march resumes. You whisper a name that might have been his, or yours, or someone else's. Then you keep walking. The retreat no longer feels like movement. It feels like erosion. You are not marching anymore. You are wearing away. Your body, your boots, your thoughts. Each step doesn't bring you closer to home. It just takes something from you. A little warmth, a little weight, a memory you didn't know could fade. By now, you've stopped thinking in days. Time has become a blur of hunger, frost, and footsteps. Only the weather marks change. And even that, mostly for the worse. You watch the men around you shrink, not in number, though that too, but in spirit. Once they joked, muttered, cursed. Now they are quiet, eyes unfocused, shoulders slumped beneath their packs. You used to see pride in their walk. Now you see only survival. They don't talk about the enemy. They don't speak of Napoleon. They speak only when necessary. How many steps to the next fire? Who has a bit of salt? Whether the snow looks shallow enough to dig into. You begin to recognize the signs before someone collapses. A tilt of the head, a stagger that lingers, hands that no longer grip the musket tightly. You see it in a man near you. He stumbles once, rights himself, then again, slower. Finally, he drops to his knees. No wound, no sound, just surrender. You step forward to help, but he waves you off. His eyes are calm. He knows. You walk on. So does everyone else. By now, your feet bleed. You don't even bother changing the wrappings. There's no clean cloth left. Just the same strip of shirt you've torn twice and tied tighter each morning. The blisters burst, scab, and burst again. You feel every step in your ankles, your knees, your back. But stopping is worse. When you stop, the cold sets in. When you stop, the world reminds you how much it hurts. So, you move. The snow deepens again. Wind howls through the trees, turning branches into claws that scrape at your coat as you pass. You remember the leaves that once filled these forests. You remember shade, warmth. They feel like things that happened to someone else, someone you've since outlived, someone softer. At night, your blanket has frozen into shape, crisp at the folds, stiff at the edges. You no longer try to spread it. You just wrap yourself in whatever warmth you can steal from ember, from the ground, from your own breath, which you sometimes exhale slowly just to watch it disappear. You still dream, not of home, but of silence. You dream of lying down and not waking up cold, of not waking up at all. Ember doesn't bark anymore, but he stays close. He sleeps curled against your chest, his body trembling as much from fatigue as cold. You brush snow from his back each morning. You speak to him quietly as you eat. One-sided conversations about things you don't remember fully. The shape of your mother, bread, the sound of rain on a roof, the scent of soap. You don't know if he listens, but he doesn't walk away. One morning, you come upon a crossroads. The signs are blank, weather-worn. No one can read them. You follow the column north, though no one says why. The officers barely speak now. One wears a scarf tied over his mouth. Another limps with a bandaged leg. They lead because they are at the front, not because they offer direction. The road bends, but the cold does not. A wagon lies overturned ahead. Supplies scattered. A bag of flour spilled into the snow, melting into a gray paste. You watch as 3 men kneel to gather it with their bare hands, shoveling it into hats, boots, anything they can carry. One licks his fingers. Another weeps silently. You pass without stopping. You no longer believe in sharing, not because you are cruel, but because you are tired. Later, you see birds, black, small, perched in rows along a broken fence, watching, waiting. They do not fly away as you pass. They simply blink, tilt their heads. Perhaps they've seen this before. Another army, another retreat, another winter. That evening, you reach a frozen pond. You cross it slowly, one at a time, the ice groaning beneath you. You keep your eyes on the other side, not because it's safer, but because you can't bear to look down. The weight of your pack shifts as you step. You move like a shadow, light, cautious, cold. When you reach the far bank, you drop to your knees and breathe. You sleep that night in a hollow beneath a fallen tree. The wind whistles through the branches, soft and long. It sounds like singing. You hum along without knowing the tune. Ember stirs beside you, then rests again. You eat your last biscuit. You don't save a crumb. You lie back, eyes open, staring into a sky that never fully clears. In the morning, a man does not wake. Another disappears during the night. A third walks into the trees and is never seen again. The retreat continues. Slower, colder, quieter. You rise, shoulder your musket, call to Ember, and walk, because it's all that's left to do.
From now, my voice has been changed. Chapter 11. Ghosts on the ice. The river lies ahead wide, flat, and frozen. It doesn't shimmer. It doesn't gleam. It simply waits, stretching into the fog like a sheet of dull glass. The Berezina, they whisper. The name carries weight now, spoken with the softness of fear. You've heard the stories how the ice cracks under cannon wheels, how men vanish beneath the surface with barely a splash, how horses scream as they fall, but no one stops walking. You reach the edge, and the line bunches close. The officers bark names and orders, frantic, their words cut short by cold wind and urgency. There are too many of you, too few bridges, not enough time. You stand and watch the others begin to cross. Engineers have built makeshift platforms, planks nailed together, ropes stretched thin, cannon lashed to sleds. The creaking is constant. Every step sounds like a question. Will it hold? Will I fall? The men walk low, heads down, packs tight. They move as though the ice is listening, and any wrong motion might wake it. You tighten your coat, pull Ember close, and wait your turn. The air smells of smoke, sweat, and fear. Somewhere behind you, cannon fire echoes. Not loud, not constant, but there. The enemy is close. How close, no one knows. It doesn't matter. The only thing ahead is the ice. When it's finally your time to cross, your boots strike the frozen river with a sound you can't describe. Not a crack, not a thud. Just a hollow note, deep and far away. You place your steps carefully, eyes fixed forward. You don't look down. Ember walks beside you, paws splayed wide, tail low. You whisper his name once, not a command, just a reassurance. Halfway across, you hear it, a distant groan beneath the surface, long and low like thunder trapped under the earth. A man behind you shouts, another drops to his knees, crawling. Someone cries out a name, a line slows, tightens, then moves again. You do not stop. You focus on the end of the bridge, where the snow resumes, where safety is no longer guaranteed, but at least solid. You reach it. You reach it, you step off the ice, your legs unsteady. Ember jumps beside you and shakes the snow from his fur. You turn and look back. A wagon tips. A wheel shatters. Men leap clear. One does not. The bridge groans again. You turn away. The camp on the far side is chaos. Men rushing, shouting, dragging the wounded from the bank. Fires sputter in dugout pits. Blankets are thrown over bodies that no longer move. You find space beside a broken cart and drop your pack. Your legs tremble. Your fingers barely move. You hold them to Ember's side and close your eyes. Later, you are ordered to help. You pull ropes, push sleds, carry wounded across the ice while cannon thuds in the distance grow closer. One man you carry is missing his boot. His foot is black. He doesn't speak. He just stares up at the white sky, lips parted in silent awe. You try not to look at him. You try to think only of balance, of each step. The engineers shout over the roar of flame and timber. A bridge has collapsed. The other is still holding, barely. Men are rushing across in pairs now.
Okay.
The ice splinters in thin lines, reaching like fingers. A horse stumbles and slides, kicking wildly. Screams. The sound cuts through the noise, high and human. You close your eyes, keep walking. When your shift ends, you collapse beside your gear. You don't eat. You don't speak. You curl against Ember and let the warmth of his body carry you back from the edge. The sky is red with sunset, or fire. You can't tell anymore. Everything glows the same shade now: fear, blood, cold, memory. One man says Napoleon crossed hours ago. Another says he hasn't. A third says he's already left you all behind. No one knows the truth, but it doesn't matter. The river is still there, behind you, groaning. You lie awake that night and think about the sound of it, that low moan, that slow, steady creak, like it remembers the weight of every step, like it resents the footprints. You wonder how many are still crossing. You wonder how many won't. By morning, the river is full of ghosts. Not the kind from stories or dreams. These are quieter, heavier, frozen into the ice or lying just beyond it. Half submerged, arms curled as though sleeping. You wake before the sun, frost lining your blanket, Ember's fur stiff against your cheek. You sit up slowly. Every muscle protests. Every joint is stiff. The fire has burned out during the night, and the cold returns instantly, wrapping around your neck like a collar. You look back toward the Berezina, and what you see doesn't feel like memory. It feels like a wound still open, still bleeding beneath the snow. They say the bridges are gone now, burned by the rear guard to prevent pursuit. That no more will cross. That those still on the far bank will not be joining you. You hear no cannon today, no drums, just the faint whistle of wind sweeping across the water's surface and the soft creak of settling ice, as if the river itself has exhaled after swallowing so much. You don't speak as you break camp. Neither does anyone else. The men move slower than ever, not from pain or fatigue, though both weigh heavily, but from something deeper. Resignation, The sense that whatever this is now, it is not an army. It is what remains after an army dissolves. You eat a heel of bread, blackened from fire and nearly inedible. You chew it anyway. It takes time. That's good. The longer you chew, the less you notice the hunger after. The snow begins to fall again, light at first, dry flakes that drift slowly down like dust disturbed from an attic. You watch them accumulate on your sleeve, melting into small circles that vanish in seconds. You pull your coat tighter and begin walking. Ember follows, leaving paw prints beside yours, 2 lines moving through a world reduced to white and ash and silence. Midday brings another crossing, not a river, but a frozen meadow, flat and endless, where more bodies lie scattered. You don't know how they died. Cold, hunger, gunfire. It doesn't matter anymore. They lie as if they were dropped mid-sentence. One still clutches a piece of bread. Another has a pipe frozen to his lips. You walk past them. You don't stop. If you stop, you might not move again. Someone near you begins muttering. At first it's just words, then names, then a song. It's not one you recognize. The tune loops without melody, broken by breath, drifting between verse and prayer. No one tells him to stop. Eventually, his voice fades into the snow, and the wind takes over. You hear it singing now, too? You almost believe it's humming. Later, a group breaks away from the main road. 5 men, walking toward a stand of trees. No one calls them back. No one asks why. They simply vanish into the fog, swallowed like everything else. You wonder if they're looking for food or shelter, or if they've decided to lie down and let the snow do what it does best. You don't wonder long. You keep walking. By nightfall, the camp is scattered. There's no fire tonight, just curled bodies under frost-ridged blankets. You find a place between a fallen log and a small hill, blocking the worst of the wind. Ember presses close, shaking in his sleep. You place your hands against his side, not to warm him, but to remember that he's still there, still alive, still trying. You dream of the river, but not the one you crossed. This one is warm, slow-moving, lined with trees bearing fruit you can't name. You are walking beside it barefoot, coat slung over your shoulder, musket nowhere in sight. Ember runs ahead, barking at birds that scatter into a blue sky. You stop to drink. Cold, but not cruel. You look up, and someone is calling your name. You wake with a start. There is no river, only wind, only white, only the ache in your back and the ice clinging to your lashes. You rise slowly. Your legs resist. You breathe into your gloves. You pat Ember gently. He opens his eyes. You say nothing. He follows. As you begin walking again, you glance back once toward the river, now distant and hidden in morning mist. You try to count the lives it took. You stop when the numbers lose meaning. You press forward, head bowed, each step unsure, each breath an effort. And behind you, buried in the ice, the ghosts remain. Chapter 12. The Emperor's Return. You reach France, not with a shout, a ca, but with a whisper. There are no banners, no grand arches, no lines of villagers greeting you with songs. Just the slow, silent awareness that the snow beneath your feet no longer stretches forever, that the trees seem familiar again, that the wind, while still cold, no longer punishes you with every breath. You feel it before anyone says it tours back. Not home, not exactly, but back. The march does not end. You simply stop counting the days. There are fewer of you now, fewer still who can walk without leaning. The officers no longer ride ahead. They walk among you, shoulders hunched, faces drawn, cloaks tattered like the rest. Even the uniforms have lost their meaning. Collars have dulled to the same palette. Gray, brown, ash. The emperor is nowhere to be seen. You reach a village reel living. Smoke curls from chimneys. Doors open at your approach. A child peeks from behind her mother's skirt, and then a man opens his home. He brings out a loaf of bread. Not much, but real. Warm, you're offered a piece. You hold it in your hands like something sacred. You chew slowly, carefully, not just because of hunger, but because you, Dan T, want to waste the sensation of something soft, something whole. That evening, you sleep in a barn. The straw is old but dry. You lie beneath it like a blanket, ember curled against your knees. The wind slips through the boards, but you don't care. You feel full, or as close to it as you've been in weeks. You dream of beds with sheets, of warm soup, of boots that fit. The next day, you are told the emperor has returned to Paris. He rode ahead with his guard. Clean-shaven, uniform crisp, hat held high. The people cheered. The press called it bold. A winter campaign like no other. They speak of victories, of strategy, of brilliance. You listen in silence. You stare at your hands, the raw skin beneath your gloves, and wonder what brilliance tastes like when your tongue is cracked and numb. A clerk arrives to take names. He asks yours. You spell it for him. A key nods, writes it down, and hands you a small piece of paper, record of service. Your reward will come later, he says. You nod. You tuck the paper inside your coat next to your mother's letter. You feel nothing. Others begin to leave. Some are discharged, others reassigned. You sit beneath a tree near the road and watch them go. The officers offer small speeches, but their voices lack conviction. One man receives a medal. He holds it in both hands, stares at it a long time, then slips it into his pack without comment. No one applauds. You walk to a well and draw water. Cold, clean, clear. You drink deeply. The cold no longer hurts. It feels familiar. You splash it on your face. The reflection that stares back from the surface is not the one you remember. The cheeks are hollow. The eyes deeper. The mouth is cracked at the edges. Oh. But you recognize something in the eyes. Not pain, not fear, just distance. Like you're already gone, even while you stand. Someone speaks of rebuilding, of rejoining family, of finding work. You nod along. You don't know what you'll do. The village is kind. The people, generous. They offer food, shelter, clothing. One woman gives you a scar, Fred, clean, warm. You accept it with quiet thanks. But when you lie in the straw again that night, you take your mother's scarf from your pack and wrap it back around your neck. The emperor gives a speech in Paris. You hear about it secondhand from a boy delivering bread. He says the crowds were enormous, that Napoleon stood tall, eyes bright, promising strength and renewal. You say nothing. You stare at the fire. You place another log on it and watch the embers rise. Later, you find a quiet corner and open the folded paper again. It's your name, written neatly, the date of your service, the location, Moscow, the outcome, returned. You trace your finger across the word returned. It doesn't feel true. Part of you is still walking, still crossing rivers, still crouched behind a broken wagon, musket across your chest. You fold the paper again, carefully. You slide it back into your coat. You sleep with your coat buttoned to the top, ember pressed against your hip. The stars above, no longer cruel, just distant. You do not dream, you do not cry. You simply breathe. And somewhere in the silence, the war ends.
You stay in the village for 2 weeks. Long enough for the color to return to your face. Long enough for your fingers to stop cracking. Long enough to remember the rhythms of sleep that aren't interrupted by fear, wind, or hunger. Be a old woman whose barn you sleep in never asks questions. She leaves a small bowl of soup each evening and pats Simba gently. When she pats, you don't ask her name. She doesn't ask yours. That, somehow, is a kindness. A tailor in the village takes your coat and repairs it. The buttons are replaced, the tears sewn, belining patched with scraps of clean cloth. When he hands it back to you, it doesn't feel like your coat anymore. It feels too neat to hold. Be urine, your hand over the stitches and almost don't recognize the shape. Still, you wear it. The village square begins to fill with talk of returning soldiers. Prove brothers, cousins, husbands. Most haven't come back. Some letters arrive, written by other hands. One morning, a young girl brings you a letter by mistake. You open it before realizing the name isn't yours. Inside, a man describes how he escaped a burning wagon during the retreat. He mentions a dog who wouldn't leave his side. You stare at the words for a long time before folding the letter and returning it. She doesn't ask. You walk the edge of the village most days, ember trailing close behind. The trees here are familiar, shorter, stouter, no frost, clinging to every branch. The air no longer bites, it only chills. Birds return. The sound startles you at first. You stop beneath a bare oak and listen to the chirping. For what feels like hours, it doesn't feel real. But it doesn't go away. One afternoon, a man in a dark coat arrives. An officer, or maybe just a messenger dressed like one. He carries a bag of coins and a small wooden box. Your name is called. You step forward. He opens the box. Inside, a medal. Bronze, dull, stamped with the shape of an eagle. P pins it to your chest without ceremony, hands you the coins, and says, "For your service," you nod. You do not thank him, but he doesn't expect it. He moves on to the next man. You leave the medal on your coat for an hour, then you unpin it and place it in your pack, beside the letter and the folded paper with your name. Later that night, someone lights a fire in the center of the square. A group gathers: farmers, children, a few soldiers who haven't yet moved on. Someone plays a violin. The music is slow, lilting, a song you don't know but feels familiar. You sit beside the flame, ember curled at your feet, and close your eyes. The warmth seeps in, the music floats. You drift. Someone speaks beside you, softly, about the emperor. Bailey, about how he looked confident. He's planning something. The man says, he always is. You open your eyes but say nothing. The fire cracks. Ember lifts his head, then lowers it again. In the days that follow, you begin to prepare. You don't know for what. You clean your musket, though it hasn't fired in weeks. You polish your boots. You mend your pack. You repack everything you own, as though expecting to leave. When you're finished, you sit on the barn's threshold and watch the road disappear into the trees. A boy from the village brings you a loaf of bread before dusk. He asks if you're staying. You shrugged. He nods, understanding more than you expect. He says his uncle marched east but never returned. Then he says nothing more and runs off, his boots kicking up dust that no longer hides ice. That night, you opened your mother's letter once again. The ink has faded. Put the creases are deep, but the words remain. You whisper them aloud, softly. You mouth them again. Bye. You close your eye. You picture her face, not as it was when you left, but younger, laughing, holding out a bowl of stew. You try to hold the image as long as you can. Sleep comes slowly now, not from pain, not from fear, but because you lie awake listening to the sound of life continuing. Be of branches swaying, of embers' breath, fire, a fire crackling in someone else's hearth. You're not used to it, but you're learning. You rise the next morning before the sun. Pack your things in silence. You thank the old woman with a nod. You adjust your coat. You walk toward the road. Ember follows without being called. You don't know where you're going, but the sky is clear. L can tell you how can tell you best. And for the first time in months, your steps make no sound at all.
The order comes without ceremony. One morning, you rise with frost on your blanket, stretch your stiff limbs, and a sergeant quietly tells you to prepare to move. No speech, no drum roll, no farewell to the city. Just a nod, a glance toward the eastern road, and the weight of understanding settling on every shoulder at once. Moscow is behind you now. Ahead lies the journey home, or something that might once have resembled home. You sling your pack, cradle your musket, and begin walking once more. But something is different. Something has shifted. The road you once marched down in hopeful formation is now a graveyard of broken wagons and discarded gear. Burned-out carts litter the edges of the snow-covered trail, and the bodies of horses, stiff, limbs frozen mid-motion, line the path like forgotten statues. You pass them silently. You used to count. Not anymore. You stopped when the number no longer mattered. The men around you do not talk. Some cough, some limp, all walk. The snow deepens with each passing day. It piles along the sides of the road, clings to your coat sleeves, turns your breath into mist that curls back into your face. Your boots, already cracked, begin to stiffen at the toes. The laces snap one morning as you try to tie them. You fasten them with strips of cloth torn from the lining of your pack. They hold, barely. The frost creeps in anyway. The retreat has no rhythm. You march for hours, then stop for minutes. Or the other way around. The pace is dictated by the weakest now. Those who stumble most, those whose carts groan loudest, those who fall and cannot rise. You move as a wounded creature, dragging yourself across a landscape that seems determined to remain endless. The horizon no longer changes. Just more white, more sky, more wind. The rations thin. You eat every other day, or when you find something left behind. A crust frozen into the corner of a pack, a shriveled potato blackened with frost. You scrape away the rot. You chew slowly. The hunger doesn't fade, but it becomes familiar, like an old injury you've grown used to living with. You no longer expect to feel full. You only expect to survive. One night, a man near you dies in his sleep. You wake to find him curled tightly into his coat, eyes closed, hands tucked beneath his chin. For a moment, you think he's just resting, but then you notice the stillness, the way the breath never rises. No one speaks. You and another man lift him gently, carry him a few paces from the others, and place him beneath a tree. You mark the spot with a broken musket butt. That is all. Then you return to your place in line. The march continues. Ember keeps close to your heels now. He no longer scouts ahead. The snow makes it harder for him, too. You share what little you have. A bite of bread, a sliver of meat when you're lucky. He eats quietly with soft eyes. His ribs are visible now, but he still walks, even when you can see the shiver in his legs. He doesn't bark, just looks up at you from time to time as if asking, "How much farther?" One evening, you pass a village not marked on any map. It is barely a dozen homes, their roofs caved in, doors blown open. You search them out of habit, not hope. In one you find a cradle, rocking slightly in the wind. It is empty. A single wooden spoon lies beside it. You take the spoon, not because you need it, not because it's useful, but because your hand needed to hold something light. That night, the wind howls harder than ever. Your blanket is useless. You sleep beneath your coat, curled against a slope in the road, ember pressed into your side. You wake often. Not from dreams, but from the cold biting at your ears, your toes, the tip of your nose. You press your fingers beneath your arms, against your neck. Anything to keep them warm. You mutter your name under your breath, quietly, again and again. Just to hear it, just to remember that you're still someone. By now, the ranks have thinned. You notice it more clearly in the morning, when the column begins to move and the spaces between men grow wider. Fewer footsteps, fewer faces. No one announces who's gone. They simply disappear, like words erased from a page. You look for familiar eyes, familiar gaits, and find none. You stop expecting to. The officers speak less, too. One collapsed during a snowfall and was left behind. The other now rides a lame horse, staring ahead with hollow cheeks and bleeding lips. His commands are mumbled, barely heard. You follow anyway, Not because of orders, but because movement is easier than stopping, because stillness is too close to death. On the 12th day of retreat, you cross a frozen stream. The ice cracks beneath your feet but does not give. You walk lightly, carefully. One man behind you is not so lucky. The sound is sharp, like a rifle shot. You don't turn. You hear the splash, the silence that follows. Then the march resumes. You whisper a name that might have been his, or yours, or someone else's. Then you keep walking.
The road to Waterloo winds like an old scar across the countryside, shallow in some places, deep in others. You march it as you've marched before, but with a weariness not just in the legs, but in the soul. The days blur together. The boots are better this time, but the aches are older. You no longer chase honor. You walk because there is nothing else to do. Rain falls again, soaking your coat and turning fields to swamps. The tents don't hold the water. Fires hiss and sputter. But no one complains. The grumbling that once filled the camps of youth is gone. These men, these survivors of one defeat to many, now speak in glances, in nods, in long silences. You sit at the edge of the fire each night, ember by your side, as you mend your pack, check your flint, oil your musket. The same motions, the same rhythm, a pattern you know too well. You hear about the British commander Wellington, about his strong position on the ridge near the village of Mont Saint-Jean. You're told the Prussians may come to his aid. You're told the emperor has a plan. Of course he does. He always does. But you know better now than to place faith in plans. The land, the weather, the weight of men, that's what decides. June 18th dawns with clouds the color of wet lead. The ground is thick with mud, clinging to boots, wheels, hooves. You're placed in the front ranks. Your fingers tighten around your musket. Your breath fogs. Around you, the air is heavy with waiting. Someone coughs. Another man prays under his breath. You do neither. You simply watch the horizon. The drums begin. Not loud, but deep like distant thunder rolling closer. The orders are passed. The formations move. You step forward. Ember stays behind this time, tied gently to a tree. You can't bring him into this. Not now. You kneel, whisper a word to him, and he whines softly. You don't look back. The battlefield is a canvas of confusion and damp noise. Cannons fire in rhythm. Smoke rolls across the fields, swallowing men whole. You move forward. The mud slows your steps, clings to your legs, but you press on. The first volley is fired, and the crack of musketry rips the silence into shreds. You fire once, reload, fire again. The motion is mechanical, practiced, ancient, like pulling a lever on fate. You see men fall some quickly, some slowly. Some reach for comrades. Others fall alone. You step over them. Not out of coldness, but necessity. A man beside you screams as he's hit. Another drops without a sound. You keep firing. Hours pass, or minutes. You can't tell. The sun never breaks through. The smoke never clears. Your hands tremble. Your coat is torn. You have no idea if you're winning or losing, only that the line must be held. And then the order comes to charge. You run, not fast, not bold, just forward through mud that grips your boots and across a field where every step feels like the last. You raise your bayonet. You don't remember what happens next. The noise becomes too much. The vision blurs. The ground rushes up to meet you. When you wake, it is evening. The cannons have stopped. The sky is bleeding gold. You lie still, pressed against the cold, wet earth. Your musket is gone. Your hands are empty. All around you are the sounds of boots crunching, voices low, groans rising from the grass. You sit up slowly, feel the sting of bruises, the pull of something deeper, but you are alive. You stagger back toward the woods, toward the tree, toward the place where you tied Ember. He's there, waiting when he sees you. He barks once low, relieved, and runs forward. You drop to your knees and bury your face in his fur. The road is broken now, the army shattered, the emperor defeated. The war is over again, but this time, truly, you sit beneath the tree with Ember and listen to the final echoes fade into the hills. You feel no triumph, no sorrow, only the quiet truth that you have survived again. That night, as stars blink through the smoke-thinned sky, you lie beside your old coat, your mother's letter, the useless medal, and your dog, your only constant in a world that changes too fast, and you sleep. Chapter 14. Silence after the fall. You do not return to a parade. There are no trumpets, no welcome. Only the road, long and patient, winding back through the heart of France. Past fields left untended and towns where shutters stay closed. You walk slower now, not from injury, but because there is no reason to rush. Nothing waits at the end but quiet. Your coat is worn again, patched once more, but now without even the ghost of a uniform's pride. The medal stays buried in your pack. The musket you left on the field, you didn't look for it. You didn't need it anymore. Ember stays close, no longer running ahead, but walking beside you as if he, too, understands this is the final march. In the villages, people speak softly. Some speak of peace. Others mutter about the king. Some avoid your eyes. Others offer bread without asking your name. They've seen too many soldiers pass through. Too many young faces return older or not at all. You do not blame them. You feel like a stranger to your own reflection. You find a small cottage on the outskirts of Dijon, empty, overgrown. The door swings open with a groan, and inside, dust greets you like an old friend. You sweep. You patch the windows. You mend the roof with your hands and time. You make a bed in the corner with old blankets and the straw Ember seems to like. The walls creak. The fireplace smokes, but it is yours. The days settle into routine. You rise with the sun. You fetch water from the stream. You tend a small garden, nothing fancy, just potatoes, some cabbage, a row of onions. You mend what you wear. You trade what little you can spare in the nearby town. No one asks what you did. No one mentions Moscow or Austerlitz or Waterloo. They speak of rain, crops, taxes. It is enough, okay? You sit on the step and watch the stars. Ember curls beside you. Sometimes you read your mother's letter again. Sometimes you fold it back without opening it. You think of writing a reply, even though she is gone. So you write none at all. Seasons turn. Seasons turn. Winter returns, but gentler now. You've learned how to prepare, how to stay warm without marching. The fire crackles. The soup simmers. You share scraps with Ember, and he wags his tail like he always has. The rhythm of your life no longer comes from drums or orders, it comes from the steady breath of survival, of choosing to stay still. A traveler passes one day and tells you Napoleon is gone for good, that he's been sent far away to an island with no army and no chance of return. You nod. You do not cheer. You do not weep. You stir the soup and say nothing. Later, you look at the coat hanging by the door, the one you once wore through snow and fire, and you take it down, fold it carefully, and place it in the chest beneath your bed. Some nights, you still dream of marching, not the chaos, not the fear, just the motion step after step, through fields that never end. You wake with your legs aching and your hands clenched, but embers snore grounds you. The fire's glow welcomes you back. And so you lie there, staring at the beams above, and you breathe. One evening, you hear a knock. A boy stands at your door with wide eyes and bare feet. He asks if the stories are true. You really followed the emperor to the edge of the world. You look at him for a long time. You do not speak of blood or frost or shattered men. Acute. You tell him how heavy a pack can become when you've been carrying it for years. He nods, unsure what to do with your answer. You hand him a piece of bread, and he runs off into the dusk. You sit back down. You listen to the wind through the trees, and you rest. Years pass, though you do not count them. The seasons mark time better than any calendar. The trees outside your cottage grow a little taller each spring. The roof requires less patching as your repairs hold firmer. Your steps grow slower, but steadier. The aches you once carried from the battlefield now settle quietly into your bones, not as wounds, but as familiar companions. Ember ages too. His fur fades from gold to pale silver. He limps in the mornings and naps more often than he used to. But when you walk the footpath to the stream, he follows, tail wagging, ears perked. You speak to him softly these days, not of war, but of the garden, the clouds, the stubborn goat from the next farm over. He listens like he always has. Your world has grown small, but not empty. A widow from the village sometimes brings jam. A boy helps you lift heavy barrels before the winter. You offer potatoes in return. No one talks of medals or nations, only weather and bread. It is enough. The blue coat remains folded, still sharp with creases. You've stitched the holes clean, polished the buttons once more, but you never wear it. Sometimes you lift it from the chest and hold it in your lap. The smell of gunpowder is gone now, replaced by cedar and thyme. You trace the seams, remembering not battles, but the quiet before them, the frost on your lashes, the rhythm of marching boots, the fire you shared with men who never came back. In the corner of your small room is a box. In it, the metal, the flint you carried too long, your mother's last letter, unread now but never forgotten. You think, sometimes, of what you would tell her, that you made it back, that you learned to sleep through the wind, that you kept her scarf even when the coat fell apart. One spring afternoon, you find Ember lying in the garden, his breathing soft and slow. He lifts his head when you kneel beside him. You run your hand through his fur, whisper a name from long ago, and he closes his eyes. The stillness that follows is not cruel, it is quiet, like snowfall, like the hush after a storm. You bury him beneath the tree where he first barked at birds and chased falling leaves. You mark the spot with a stone from the river, round and smooth. That night, the cottage feels larger. You sit by the fire, listening for a sound that doesn't come. You hold the collar in your hand for a long time before tucking it into the box beside the letter. You dream that night of fields stretching into mist, of men walking silently, their coats loose and worn, their faces peaceful. You walk among them, no pain in your legs, no rifle on your back, just the feel of soft earth and distant bird song. Ember runs ahead, young again, and the sun rises slowly behind him. In the years that follow, you tend your garden. The villagers call you the quiet man, the one who doesn't talk much, but always shares his onions. The children wave. Some ask about the war. You say you forget. It's easier that way. But when the frost comes and you light your evening fire, you sometimes hum a song no one taught you, a rhythm not of battle, but of survival, a melody of waking up, of stepping forward, of learning how to stay. When at last you do not rise with the sun, it is peaceful. No one rushes in. The world outside carries on. The blue coat still hangs folded, untouched. The metal never pinned again, but the garden is green. The stream still flows, and your name remains written somewhere on an old paper. Now yellowed, now folded, resting in a box beside a scarf and a collar. And in the quiet cottage outside Dijon, beneath a creaking roof and a gentle wind, you sleep at last. And so, the long road comes to rest. From the first thunder of drums in a distant field, to a quiet cottage beneath the trees, we have followed a journey not of glory, but of endurance. You've walked beside muddy boots, frozen wagons, fading footsteps, and perhaps now, even your breath has begun to slow. History is full of noise. But here, with the drowsy historian, we explore the quiet in between the gentle rustle of a soldier's coat, the silent march beneath stars, the slow return home. These are the stories not of victory, but of survival. Ordinary people pressed into extraordinary times. If you found rest in this tale, or peace in the past we walked through together, I invite you to leave a comment below what part of the story stayed with you the most. I read every one. And if you'd like to drift through more forgotten corners of time, gently told and softly lit, don't forget to subscribe to The Drowsy Historian, where the past was hard, but the telling is gentle. Sleep well, traveler.
Till next time.